Well, my friend, I was born in Austria in a small town called Wiener Neustadt. It's about 30 kilometers south of Vienna. And it was a famous city actually because only 18 houses were left after the Second World War. Everything else was bombed because we had factories there. Actually, Porsche had its first little shop there. The father was working at Daimler-Benz, what was at the time a big factory. Uh, Airplanes, trains, everything was produced. It was a more commercial area at the time. But it took a long time to recover after the war. Anyway, I had a great childhood. We had nothing, but we had everything. And life was good. Then later on, I went to school to a quite fancy, not fancy, famous school in Mödling, that is near Vienna. And I studied architecture. And after school, I did my military and started with a company, one of the biggest companies in Austria at the time.
So how did you get into architecture? Was it something you were interested in?
Well,
In the middle school, or
I was always building stuff with my hands, and this was something I wanted to build, fantasy castles and dreams. What I ended up at this big company was building highways. I had 7 kilometers of highway with a bridge, and it was not actually the dream I had. Few years later, there was political problems and change of leadership in the government, and the company lost their bid, and we young architects lost also our jobs. I also was at the same time a race car driver, financing myself. In '66, there was then the end of private driving, and you had to belong to a stable. And so it ended. So I left Austria and went to Germany to conquer a new world.
so did you enjoy building highways?
Well, it was a challenge, and in life I always enjoyed challenges. It was not about the highway or whatever I did, because I was never afraid of working for my money and for my survival. I hate cold weather, and sometimes we had to go in stormy and wintry weather out there also and measure for the planum what we take off, what we build on, in order to have the highway straight through the country.
But this is not what you wanted to do. You wanted to build buildings.
Well, look, we all have dreams. As a kid, I wanted to be a deep sea diver. Well, like later on, a lot of people wanted to be astronauts. So you don't really know what you want as a kid. You just want adventure. I had to create my own dreams, and it started when I went to Germany. I kind of started to develop my own fantasies. And after living in Germany, seeing the world in a different way, of course, I met people from all over the world, and I met a beautiful girl from England, and she convinced me to move to England. And I said it's not a bad idea because I wanted to learn English also.
So tell us the difference between Austria and Germany, because for a lot of us who haven't experienced these countries too much, they seem kind of super similar.
Well, to tell you the truth, when I went to Germany at the time in '67, um, they, they looked at Austrians still as Neanderthalers. So now everything is Europe, everybody is equal, you know. But before it was like we were foreigners in this country, and we were a total minority. So, but I took it for my advantage because with the accent as an Austrian and the dialect, you know, a lot of Germans were actually excited about it when we came with this typical good morning, Madame, Monsieur, you know, mein Herr, meine liebe Frau. It was the accent, you know, what attracted people. I think it's in every language.
Is there a big difference in between the accents?
Oh yeah, as Austrians, we read and write German, but we speak dialects. Where Germans can't understand us, but we can understand Germans.
Oh, is that different? They
yeah.
struggle to understand you?
Oh yeah, it's even every county has a different dialect, you know. If I go to Tyrol, sometimes I have problem to understand the people there, you know.
So who's this lady you met from England?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's a long time ago. I don't even remember the name anymore. I hope she doesn't watch that program. Sweetheart. So...
Have you learned that in England?
Well, it was the best thing when you can't remember a name, you know, to call everybody a sweetheart. So anyway, I learned English, and I was working in different places like bars, you know, because I knew how to handle beer, and I was serving beer in those bars, and I met these two Dutch guys, and they said, "Oh, you're an architect. You should go to South Africa." And I said, "Well, what's in South Africa?" And they said, "Oh, there's a lot of building going on and stuff." So one day, without saying anything to, what do we call her, Betsy, I just left for South Africa, for Johannesburg. Found out I couldn't really work there as an architect because you need the state's exams. But I started to work anyway, opened a little office and painted and designed blueprints for architects and made a living like that. It was in the time of apartheid, and I got caught up in a situation with a beautiful woman again, black, and they kind of denounced me, and then the judge shipped me out anywhere in Africa to avoid the process and stuff.
How bad was the segregation in South Africa?
How what?
How bad was the segregation in South Africa?
It was, not that it was bad, you know, black and white people talked to each other. It was just the law would forbid to any interaction, and a lot of whites couldn't do business with blacks, and blacks couldn't do business with whites.
You didn't tell us about the British experience. So let's step back.
It was...
You met Betsy in Germany. You dated. Was Betsy white or black?
No, she was white, and
so you do both. Go both ways.
And she was white. Well, I'm a Caucasian from Austria, so I had no, you know, we had no idea about different races growing up. You see, because we almost were like a small town, you know, and we even had silly games like who is afraid of the black man, and all the kids were hiding and stuff like that, you know. So it was not, at the time, there was no racism. There was maybe a racism from one village to the other village, but not in that scheme what they have it today, you see. So
So that's before you started dating black women.
Well, that was a new adventure, and I call every adventure, I call it life, it's some experiences what you have in life. And if you meet somebody and you like the person, it doesn't matter what color or what creed or what race or whatever it is. If you get along with this person, it's a wonderful thing, Do discriminate against stupid and ignorant people in the world, I met a lot of them, but I kind of try to shy away from them, and ignore it.
What's the most stupid trait which really puts you off? What's the most annoying trait?
Well, how can I say? The world is a place, whatever you do, if you come with your own craft, for example, I accumulated 2 crafts in my life what were not written in the books. And when you work on those things and you become good, people are jealous. And then I went by force or accident to Morocco and stayed there 6 months and started, in order to make some money, started to draw people, tourists on the camels and on different, for little money just to survive.
How did you choose Morocco? Why did you choose Morocco?
Because it was the only country I wanted to go, but they had to fly me somewhere in Africa. So I chose Morocco because from books before, I was excited about their history. And they still had the kingdom, and it's actually a very safe country in Africa.
Okay, so is that where Morocco was, where your career as a painter started?
Not really. It started with just drawings and things like that. But my idea of adventure was I wanted to go to Israel and Istanbul. And I didn't have enough money. So, like I say, one day I tried as a stowaway on a Turkish ship, maybe to make it to Istanbul. And, but we got caught in a total foreign country. I had no idea in the beginning where we were. And everybody got arrested because they were smuggling hashish and stuff. And then they found me, and the officer said, "Get lost, what are you doing here?" and stuff. And so I went out and I came back in and I said, "Excuse me, I'm hungry. I have no money, and where am I?" And he said, Napoli. So I knew I was in Naples, in Italy. And he gave me 10,000 lira and said, "Get lost."
Wait a second. I didn't understand. So how did you end up in Napoli?
Well, as a stowaway on a Turkish ship.
And did you...
From Casablanca,
Did you smuggle hashish as well?
No, I was just trying to hide and get a ride to Istanbul. So, anyway,
Wow, and how old are you at this point?
I'm like, 21 or something.
And you already lived in 5 countries.
Yeah, well, my first experience was when I was 14. I was working in my school holidays on the Danube shipping company, what doesn't exist anymore, and going down all the way to the Black Sea and Ismail and Odessa, and making my money like that for school, for studies, So, yeah, I was always attracted to travel and to adventurous experiences.
So where are we now at this point? You arrived in Italy.
I'm standing outside the port in Naples, and I see a sign, and it says Autostrada, So I'm walking to the autostrada, and it says Roma. I said, okay, that's maybe the direction for Istanbul, you know. So I hitchhike, and the guy stops, and he says, dove vuoi andare? And I said, Istanbul. He said, nah, io vado solo Roma. I said, okay, Roma. So
Just like that.
so I hitchhiked with him to Rome. He let me out. I'm walking from the autostrada, and I come there at 5 in the morning, and I'm walking through the Forum Romanum. It was still open then for tourists also. And I took my shirt off, and the shadow from behind, I was like reliving history. And I saw the sculptures from the Caesar, and I was like, Ave Cesare, you know, like totally in trance of how Rome could have been in that times, you know. And I walked and I walked, and I came to the most beautiful place in the world, Piazza Navona. So I had 10,000 lira in my pocket. I went to the store, bought a bottle of cigarettes, I bought a bottle of whiskey, and I was happy again.
How did you smoke regularly?
Well, at the time, everybody smoked. So,
When did you quit?
oh, I quit actually 36 years ago when I moved here to Florida. And it was the best thing ever. And just before that, I saw a video of Michael Jackson dancing. And then they said he checked into a clinic because he had breathing problems. And I said, if Michael Jackson have breathing problems, I don't want to have breathing problems. So I stopped from one day to the other smoking. And then I opened my window here on South Beach at my place, and it came to me, the air from the ocean, I always called it, it was the breath of God. And that's how I stopped smoking.
That's amazing. And okay, let's go back to Italy.
Yeah, I came to this place and I saw somebody painting there. It was a Swiss guy in the piazza. And I started to doodle a little bit the church and the fountain and the thing. And somebody came by and blah, 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 spoke with me in Italian. I had no idea what he was saying. And the Swiss guy came over and he said, no, where are you from? Don't you understand? He wants to buy your drawing. Oh, okay. So he said, yeah, 20,000 lira. And the guy bought the drawing.
How much is that in dollars today?
It was like about $20, but in that time it was a lot of money already.
Like $100.
Yeah, something like that. And he said, I want more drawings and stuff. So I started to draw and paint, and the guy came back, bought two more. So I had 60,000 lira. And the Swiss guy said, where are you staying? I said, well, I was sleeping on a park bench, you know, and last night, and I don't stay anywhere. I just arrived, you know. He said, well, I rented a house in the country. If you want, you can stay there. Well, we went there. He had only one bed in one room, and the other room, I put some hay and an old coat and made my bed there, and was drawing and selling and painting. And one day the Swiss guy said, listen, I have to pay the rent. It's like 40,000 lira. And I said, here, I give you the rent, I pay it. And for the other 20,000 what I had, we bought pomodori and pasta and spaghetti and for the whole month to eat. Anyway, to make a story short, after 3 months, I had to throw the guy out. He never paid the rent.
So now you have your own apartment.
So I had my own little house, you know, and I was painting there and selling.
Was it in town? Out of town?
It was a little out of town in Rome, you know, in the countryside. But I would go every day to Piazza España, to American Express. And then I had some money, and tourists would come with cars they bought in Holland, traveled Europe, and sold them at the American Express office there. So I would buy cars there, paint Egyptian license plates, and sell them to other hippies and stuff, you know. And I said, you can't go anywhere with that plate except to Egypt. And it was a kind of a silly, lucrative business at the time for me, you know. And then I was going back selling my paintings in Piazza Navona. And one day somebody came by, and my neighbor, an Italian friend, I said, what is he saying? What is he asking? I still didn't speak Italian, you know, that well. He said, he's looking for somebody who can ride a horse. I said, I can ride a horse. And he said, oh, l'amico mio. And the guy said, okay, here's the address. Tomorrow at 7, you are there. So this is how I started as a stuntman for spaghetti western in the Italian movie business. And from one thing to the other, somebody said, who can say anything? I can. Well, it would even be like I always tell it like a joke, you know, when they would ask, who can jump from the 5th floor? My hand was always up. I said, I only can do it once, but I have to pay my rent. So I got the jobs. To get the job was sometimes more difficult than actually the job itself.
Let's talk about your career as a stuntman. So it started with the fact that you could ride a horse.
Yeah.
And then what else did you do? Did you jump off buildings?
They taught you how to die falling from a horse when you got shot. Mm-hmm. So it was like those spaghetti western, you know. But from one thing to the other, you know, I would go back to my paintings again. And I just was living free and enjoying life.
Were you dating at the time? Were you a playboy?
I was, I can't call it dating. I was, at the time in Italy, exotic meat. Everybody wanted to meet this guy. I used to be a good-looking guy, and everybody wanted to meet this guy. And yes, I did meet rich girls, poor girls, from every nation, from everything, because I was enjoying life and free thinking, and nobody wanted at the time a steady relationship or nailed down on a thing. Everybody wanted to just have fun.
Awesome. So you were getting those flags in.
Well, I was not planning either to get hooked, you know, because I didn't know if I planned actually only 2 weeks to stay in Italy. But because of circumstances, it became 20 years. But I then traveled a lot around the world with exhibitions, with movies, with a lot of other adventurous things, you know.
So Italy, 20 years.
Yeah.
Did you get married in Italy?
I didn't get married in Italy, but I met a beautiful woman in Italy. She was American, but studied in Italy film production. And one day she said to me if I would like to visit America. And
what's her name?
What's
her name?
Randy. And
was she white, black?
She
Asian?
Was a black, beautiful girl from Detroit, Michigan. And I said, yes, let's go. And we moved to Los Angeles with $6,000.
Which year was it?
The year was actually 72.
And you were how old?
Now you put me in a thing. Let's do the mathematics later on.
41?
No, much younger.
Late 30s.
And anyway, I remember 72 because her mother in Detroit would call all the time and saying, "You're living in sin with a white man." So on New Year's Eve, we walked in LA and we passed by a little store and they said, "Marriage is performed." And I went inside and I said, "How much is it?" And they said, $35. So I said, "Okay, let's get married." So we got married on New Year's Eve in 72, 73. And everybody was happy. The mom was happy, we were happy. And so this was my first adventure in America.
Was it a big deal of interracial couple in the 70s?
I don't know. For me, it was no big deal at all. And my wife was also, it was not a big deal because she was also traveling before. And she used to be an airline hostess before also with Braniff, a Texas airline. But she went to Europe because she said America was very racist still at the time. And she didn't really care about this type of lifestyle. So she ended up in Europe, and she also went to university in Cass Tech in Michigan and was a doctor of the lettere, you know, like a bachelor and stuff. So she was actually very intelligent, and she saw through all this crap what the world presented at the time and still today. So anyway, then she applied for a job in Miami.
So was that your first marriage or second?
That was my second marriage. My first
you
marriage in Austria ended after a year and a half. But we are still friends, but it was at the time her mother was the disturbing fact. And one day I said to my wife, "You want to be married with me or with your mother?" And she chose her mother, but we were young. And it was not a mistake, but it was a thing what happened, you know. And I have a son out of this marriage. And now I even have, I'm even great-grandfather because the dynasty of the Hofers continues.
So you have one son?
Yes. And a granddaughter. And I'm very happy with all the things what happened.
No regrets?
No regrets at all.
Back to the second marriage, though.
Well, like I say,
LA 70s.
Yeah, I did have a little bad feelings, and then I did not because I thought I was a bad husband in my first marriage. But then, with my second wife, I was married for 40 years, and we were the happiest people in the world. And then one night, she had a heart attack and she died on me. And that was one of the saddest things in my whole life. And I felt kind of, I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her in this paradise called Miami Beach. And I was heartbroken.
Which year was it?
This was in 2011.
So after 40 years of being together. And this heart attack, was it unexpected?
No, she was gone in 20 minutes. She was playing tennis all day, riding her bicycle, enjoying life and talking to all her friends. And in the middle of the night, I called the ambulance and they were like, giving her a shot and thing. And at a certain point, they packed her, and I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "We have to go to Mount Sinai." And so I went there. I was there before the ambulance, and I said, "This is strange. They're coming without lights and sirens." And when they unloaded her, she was already cold, and it was over. So it was very sad. And a part of things, we were like a mom and dad corporation. She was taking care of the business and I was painting. And 40 years, I never paid a bill. I had to relearn completely the life. And I had no phone. She had a computer and she said, "Don't touch it except you go on your Facebook," what I started 2 weeks before she died. So I was pushing on my Facebook, and then I saw in the middle of the night, a year later, I saw a commercial of a dating service, Christian Mingle, and I said, maybe I meet somebody normal, because it's very difficult on South Beach to meet anybody.
So why Christian mingling? And okay, first, how did you deal with the loss of your
Well, I had
your
to.
wife? Where did you get depressed? Did you get into drinking? Did you get into?
No, I was just depressed because we planned our retirement together already, you know, and enjoying life. And in the afternoon, she was at the window and we were looking out to the ocean, and she said, "We made it. Finally, we fulfilled both of our dreams, you know." And this was the hardest. And still today, I'm reflecting on that thing. Thank God I was able to give her a fantastic life for 40 years. And she always said it was adventurous. It was incredible to live with an artist. And she was also the biggest fan of my paintings before the world even realized it. So that was a fantastic thing, you know.
Why Christian dating? Why not?
Well,
Just
people
dating.
introduced friends. Some women I met, they came out from a bad relationship, or they had a bunch of kids, or a nasty ex-husband. And I was like, not desperate, but I was delusioned about all these things. And I said, well, I maybe have to spend the rest of my life alone. But then I saw this Christian Mingle, and I said, maybe somebody with some morals is on that side.
Oh, you wanted to find someone who has morals.
With decency and stuff, you know. And I looked at it, and I saw this beautiful woman, and I said that you had to contact her. And I said, here's my phone number. And under what other people said, oh, long walks on the beach, and I like a glass of red wine in a romantic setting. I said, forget that. I said, I want to be in love again. 10 minutes later, this lady calls. We're an hour on the phone. And on Mother's Day, it will be 12 years we are married. So it went so fast because we both didn't want to waste time. And there was one thing I asked her, and I said, you have any children? And she said, no. I was like, thank you so much. Because I couldn't deal with bringing up children in my age. I just wanted to be in love again with a partner. And
So you got married in
we got married
which year?
in 3 months.
So 2012.
Yeah, in 3 months later, in October, 10 days uh, after the anniversary of my wife's death, my new wife decided this is the right time. We honored her and we got married. And a complete new chapter in my life started because I found out, at the thing, my wife was actually born in Colombia. So I have been in South America, but never in Colombia. And so we went to meet her family, and they did have a family party. And at this party were 95 new relatives of mine. And I love them all. They love me. And it is just almost like a dream coming true to meet somebody again in life. So I'm telling all the single and unhappy people out there in the world, never give up.
What's the secret?
Just look for love. And like
Christian dating, ChristianDating.com.
like Barry White in his song, one of his songs says, I have so much love to give. And that's the secret of being happy.
And here you are on Ocean Drive, sitting here in this chair, sharing your story.
You guys look around there or come down and visit, or if you're already here, enjoy it. This is paradise. And my friend, director and producer Damien didn't even make a pact for today with the Chamber of Commerce for that weather. This is almost every day like that. And we even welcome a little rain. Not too much hurricane, but a little rain, because like that we're in this green paradise.
So let's talk about cars now. I know you're a big car guy, and you have you had a quite impressive car history. So let's start from the beginning. You had Porsche?
Yeah, well, I
had
was
Porsche Outlaw.
As a race car driver. I started with, long time ago, with Fiat 500, then with Volkswagen, and then with Porsche.
What category did you race in?
Well, it was sports cars and mountain rallies and airport rallies and stuff. And it was a 356 Porsche, but I also had the 90 SC Porsche. I had like 5 Porsche one time in Austria because my friend who drove motorcycle, Norton, he would do motorcycle races before me, and I would do the Porsche, the car races later on. And he was also my mechanic. When a piece was wrong, we took it from this car and put it on this car to get ready for the next weekend to race. We used to race in Czech Republic, Hungary, Italy, around the border. Just had your start money. And if you win or lose, it was not important. It was just the adventure itself. Every car in what you can think of, because I was kind of, not a fanatic, but I just loved cars. For example, in England, I had a Jaguar E, then I bought a MGB GT. I drove all over Europe, and I had a mechanical problem in Sicily, in Taormina, because of the mountain road. And they had great mechanics because he cut out my drive shaft and put a drive shaft from Alfa Romeo in it. Those were mechanics. Now you still have in Cuba mechanics like that. They fix up every car. You have Cadillacs there with a lawnmower engine. But then I had Volkswagen buses, camping in Sardinia, in Corsica, everywhere. And then I came here and I restored my car, what I had, the last Porsche, what I had in Austria,
What Porsche was
a
it?
356.
It's,
And
it's very expensive today.
but
it's a
this
super
was
classic.
already old. I had the car for 50 years. So I had it restored in California. I brought it here, but a few years ago, I got rid of it because my wife wanted an air condition. I wanted a convertible. So we got a
Wasn't it a
Beetle.
convertible?
Yeah, but there was no air condition in it.
How much did you sell it for?
For $20,000. It needed $25,000 repairs. So,
But that's how long ago had you done the refurbishment?
I did it a few times. I did it in Austria, then in California. In California, the last one was like 20 years ago, you know.
And 10 years later, you sold it.
And 20 years, and then, what is it? 6 years ago, I sold the car. My mechanic had a client, and it was the end of an era of this, you know.
So no more fancy cars, just boring cars.
I have now a Beetle, what they don't produce anymore, so it became a collectible already.
The older one or the new
2013.
one? Ah.
But it's convertible, it has air condition, and it's a beautiful car to ride around in beautiful Florida.
Do you miss the old classic cars?
To tell you the truth, in my age, I miss most sausages from Austria.
Can't you get them here in Miami County?
You can call me privately a sausage hunter in Florida, because wherever I go, the first thing I go in a store or a butcher place looking at the sausages. And the most interesting sausages I found recently were Colombian sausages with herbs and with other things. So I think this is my job for the rest of my life now.
Have you tried Argentinian sausages?
Yeah, Argentinian, and in the store they also had Spanish
so
imported
sausages. So if you have to
sausages.
rate 1 to 5, top 5.
Well, I tell you, there was a place in Fort Lauderdale, but they closed because not only did they do great sausages, but they also had a specialty leberkäse, what is like a meatloaf made by a professional butcher with European training. So there's a lot of things like cold cuts, you know, what you can't find here, but in Austria or Germany or Switzerland. Even in exotic things like Krakow, you know, from Krakow, the recipe and stuff like that. Hungarians make a beautiful thing. You have cabanossi, what everybody knows in Europe, you know, the long sausages with paprika and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, thank God I cook myself. I make my beef rouladen once a week. I have my schnitzel once a week, my goulash. And I treat myself, you know, and even my wife loves it. And we mix it with her Colombian kitchen, you know. And I always say I eat in the best restaurant on South Beach, in my house, with a beautiful beach view.
What's on the menu today?
Today is spaghetti, believe it or not. And I make sometimes my what is like people would say, oh, that's a cheap dish. No, it's spaghetti aglio olio peperoncino.
And who's gonna cook, you or your wife?
I cook. And
do you always cook or?
No, she cooks and I cook. She already pre-cooked something what she mixes later on with something else, you know. And yeah, this is our daily life, riding the bicycle, cooking, enjoying life, siesta, meeting friends. Yeah, after lunch, we have always a little beauty sleep, a little
How
nap.
long?
Maybe an hour or something, And depends on the day, depends on who is in town. Sometimes we go for a happy hour out on Lincoln Road or on Ocean Drive somewhere. Once a month we go to Little Havana, to the famous Versace restaurant, what is fantastic, the food and everything. So, yeah, it's like living on vacation. I came here 36 years ago where everybody said, why you want to move there? It's a slum. I said, well, there's beach, palm trees. I love the architecture of Ocean Drive, the Art Deco style. And one of the moving things was because in 88, Europe declared unification of Europe. And I said, as an artist, you're the first one to suffer and the last one to recover. And I was right, because a lot of my friends, some of them even very wealthy, they said, we should have followed your idea and get the hell out of Europe.
Why?
Because the taxes and the politics are killing us. And I said, well, it was obviously destiny for me.
And you lived always on Ocean Drive, or you lived different areas?
Always on Ocean Drive. I fell in love with it because before I used to go to all the islands. I even was shooting movies in Haiti, in Jamaica, in the Dominican, and I brought European productions there. Actually, I suggested it. I didn't really bring them. They wanted to go there because especially the Italians, they wanted to get their money out of Italy. So they just said, we're making a movie. But in the meantime, they would buy stores and discotheques and all kind of businesses in the islands. And I had always a stopover over Miami. And this is how I discovered South Beach. And when the third world and fourth world became crazy, people always ask me in TV interviews, how come you were in the most beautiful places in the world? How come you're in Miami Beach? I said, I tell you what, Miami Beach is the most exciting and safe island in the Caribbean. You open your window, there's no military put in front of you. And it's not really America. I call it the northernmost city of South America, because that's the beauty also after being in Italy, in a Latin country for that time, that longest time. I love this influence and the Latin flavor here. It's not like America, like in a box. And here is the only place in the world where you don't know who is a tourist and who is a local. Where in any other place, like in Italy or in Spain or in Croatia, you know exactly where the tourists are and where the locals are.
So why is that? Why do you here it's difficult to tell the difference?
It's a phenomenon, and I call it our secret. It's really our secret. And more people actually discover historic districts in their places, and especially with climate in the winter where everything is frozen and we're living here in Miami Beach paradise, And I called it a long time ago. You will see with all businesses coming here. And the pandemic helped a lot also that people moved out from big cities. And I called it a long time ago, this will be the new Atlantis. like Plato talked about it. Well, the old one is sunk in the sea somewhere, but this is the new one. Because now people don't need an office anymore in New York or Chicago. They can sit in a penthouse and on the phone they are doing business with the whole world. Thank God I'm retired because
No more painting.
no more painting, no more acting. This is not my world anymore. I used to be on top of it. Now I can't find my place anymore. Also because it's the world for young people. Young people have to do their life and conquer their world. I already have everything, thank God, behind me.
So what hobbies do you have now that you don't paint anymore, that you're retired?
I ride my bicycle. I breathe in beautiful air. I take walks with my beautiful wife. I see my friends and say hello to them. The day goes by so fast. I'm a morning person. I enjoy the sun coming out of the ocean. It's just a dream. And I hate when people say, oh, it's the waiting place for old people to die. Well, we all will die, but I prefer to die like that than die somewhere in a different environment, because here I just dream away.
How do you deal with the fact that there are a lot of tourists around?
Not really. First, I'm telling people all the time, let them enjoy nature. And when you walk into my apartment, there's nobody in there, Nobody bothers me there. If I don't want to hear him, close the window. I have soundproof windows. I don't hear anything. I'm enjoying my little castle, I couldn't have planned it better. I used to have a few apartments, and one was actually right across from my apartment. And my wife had an office there. I had my studio in one. We had the doors open. We had a cat. She would go back and forth. And when guests would come, I said, here's the key. You have your apartment. I would suggest to everybody who moves to Florida, if you have a family, don't buy a big house, because the kids leave and you are in this big house all alone and nobody comes, cleans it and stuff. Get 2 apartments. When the kids come, go over there. And if the kids don't come, rent it out and later on sell it. And you have your little love nest with your partner, with your wife. You see what I mean? Don't stay away from big real estate. This is just to impress the neighbors. I remember that when in Austria after the war, when somebody bought a Mercedes and somebody else, a certain point, had a Mercedes also in front of the house, even if it didn't have an engine in it, just for show. And this is, you have to grab the essentials.
So what's the future for real estate in South Florida?
The future for real estate is fantastic, because if somebody knows how to operate in that field, they know, you see, it's real estate people, they didn't exist when I grew up. Really, you just made the deal with the owners, but real estate people are actually trendsetters. People don't know what to buy. They need a profession, and that more money you have, that more you need outside help. I mean, you have financial help, you have people that go shopping for you, and people ask, it's almost like a psychiatrist, they ask you what you want in your place and in your house. And some people with money, they say, well, I want an indoor pool, I want a a man cave. I want a beautiful big kitchen. Everything is possible. Look, Mr. Bezos from Amazon just moved to Miami Beach and is a neighbor now. My neighbor is Gloria Estefan. I remember when Mr. Versace moved here, and I went over to Gloria Estefan and Emilio to welcome him to the neighborhood when it became better and less slum. And Mr. Versace bought this villa for nothing, and he had a vision. This could be it. Too bad it happened what happened. They got murdered. But on the other hand, this is how legends are created. Nobody would talk about Versace if he would be still walking around with a walker or in a wheelchair. But now it's like, right after he got murdered, people would come and look if they see still the blood stain there. It was almost like visiting Elvis's Graceland, you know. Japanese tourists would come by in buses and make pictures and stuff. And now some of the tour guides use it as a story to make the tourists interested in the tour of what's going on, because it's a short history already.
For how long was the blood stuck in these steps?
They cleaned it up right away, but you know, in your imagination, you see everything.
What famous people did you cross paths with?
Well, in the movie business, when I worked in the movies at the time, I was working with legends. They're all dead now, but those were legends. For example, the maestro Federico Fellini, Sergio Leone, you know, the person who made the spaghetti western internationally famous with Clint Eastwood for a fistful of dollar and a few dollars more. Robert De Niro, who did with Sergio Leone the movie Once Upon a Time in America. I had small parts in that, but I had bigger parts. I worked with every Italian famous actor. Then I met this Greek guy who saw some of my B movies in Cannes at the film festival. Sorry. And one day he stood in front of my house in Rome, and we had a few bottles of wine, and I signed a contract with him, and I made 50 television movies in Greece with him, with famous actors. They were actually famous because in Greece, those were theater actors. And video was a complete new phenomenon at the time. So a lot of those films, they were almost like old-fashioned Schnulzenfilme like we had in Europe, because all the scenery and the actors, they were always like looking at the camera, like in a theater, you know, looking at the people. But this was like how cinema was shot long time ago, you know, except then America changed everything around and made it more realistic, the whole movie thing. And I also did some TV productions here, Superboy, 100 Lives of Blackjack Savage, and Moon Over Miami. I even became a Screen Actors Guild member, but I retired from that also because I don't want to go to castings anymore, and I don't want to do anything anymore. You know, it's a different part of my life, you know.
What was the last movie you did?
Well, the last movie I did, I can't even really remember, but it was, it was like 10 years ago, because my wife reminds me, you remember when you did this movie Capricorn and stuff? Yeah, I did that. And my Greek friend, he bought a villa also here, and he came here. We shot a few TV episodes, but he died 2 years ago. So the Greek thing is over. I still have a producer in Italy, but I'm not really interested anymore. I don't want to travel anymore. You know, I'm very happy here. I'm extremely happy here because sometimes when people see me sitting either at the beach or at the pool doing nothing, they don't realize I'm running movies in my brain, my past, my history. And there's so much. I need days and days to say, okay, tomorrow I make the next sequence of my memories.
How often do you leave the island?
Maybe once or twice a week, just because we are like tourists. And let's say I want to go to Walmart, it's after the airport. So we take a little ride, and then on the way back, because my wife always says, oh, my hair, the convertible. But on the way back, I'm looking, and she said, put your hat on, and she said, take the roof down. And so we drive the convertible, and sometimes I take a detour, go through Coconut Grove, the beautiful trees, it's almost like a tunnel there. And it's just fun to drive around. Miami itself, it's a little headache because there's too much traffic, Because of movies and exhibitions in my life, I had a chance, and I would go to Africa and like Kenya, Uganda. I shot a movie with a French-Italian production in Ivory Coast, Abidjan. Then I would stay on and go to Ghana and paint. And I was invited in a village by a friend, by the chief, and I exchanged my paintbrushes and my paints for ebony sculptures. So it was my own cultural exchange. And one day I would have the idea, and I would go to Indonesia, and I stayed there for 3 months. And then I had an exhibition in the villa I rented. And because it was so far, my ambassador would bring 9 ambassadors from the western side of the world to my house, to my villa. And the Indonesian from Jakarta, the mayor, would invite me. Then he would give me a letter for the embassy in Washington, D.C., and I did an exhibition there. This is how I did a drawing on the flight back to Italy on a napkin, where I had this idea, a painting for the Pope. And so I have a painting in the Vatican Museum also. And of course, this was a big success as an artist. The galleries opened their doors after that. And it was another stepping stone for me in my career.
What made you most money? Painting, movies, real estate? What?
Real estate. I hate to say it.
But you sold everything now.
Well, over the years,
Okay, what made most money so you can buy real estate? Clearly, you have to make money to buy it.
I was painting, and when I came in '88, I came again with $6,000. And that was the down payment for my first apartment. And then I started in Bayside, and the first month I made $18,000 in Bayside 36 years ago. So I had enough money for the down payment for the apartment next to mine.
So you had a booth in Bayside, or the whole shop?
I had a push cart, but then every time somebody went out of business, they would beg me to take over the shop. So I said, well, you asked me for a favor, and they wanted to charge me for the shop. I said, you asked me for a favor, I take the shop for free, because the minute you find a renter, you push me out again. And so finally they say, okay, but don't tell anybody. So I would right away organize exhibition. And in that, the first exhibition, what I did, the Austrian Chamber of Commerce was in town. And so the Miami mayor opened the show, the ambassador from Austria opened the show, and the Austrian Chamber of Commerce were filling up the place and buying every painting. So in the middle of the summer where there's no business in Miami, I cleaned up. So it was all nothing planned. It was just the idea of an artist.
Tell us more about your art.
Well, the most important thing as an artist is it's not important what you do. You have to be an artist in life. You have to see things. For example, my wife used to love to tell people all the time, oh yeah, he's an artist. He would go and see something and he would be like, wow, this is great. And a rich person would come and say, well, what? How much? Because I rediscovered South Beach, like Tony Goldman, like a few other people from New York, you know, what came down here. Rich people didn't see any beauty in it. They just saw beauty in it when it was worth something. But before, they let it decay. This whole thing would have been already run down, bulldozed down, if there wouldn't have been barber carpet men and a few lovers for Art Deco. Now it's a jewel. It's a jewel. Of course, you have to take care of those buildings. It costs a lot of money. It's almost like to have an antique car. You have to spend a lot of money on it, you know. But I call it more like spending money on a trophy wife. It is what it is.
So what were you painting? Were you painting abstract? Were you painting
No, it's
cubism?
It's like a primitive fantasy world. And I was an autodidact, a self-taught artist. In the beginning, they were very primitive. And one day, an old lady from Austria who had some knowledge about art, she said, oh, it's the Viennese school. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, yes, it's called fantastic realism. It's realism, but not real like a camera would take an image. It's fantastic. It's fantasy. I mean, I see something and I don't see ugly things in it. I beautify everything, you know. I mean, you have a place, put a palm tree in it, put a flower in it, put a little bird in it, and it becomes a paradise. In my paintings, I never have ugly things, arms, or something to kill. If there is a spear in a thing, it's a thing to hunt and to make food. In my paintings, it's more preservation. And little did I know, I became what you call a peace artist. And they even gave me the United Nations Peace Medal for that thing in '95 because I was promoting peace in the world.
Through your art?
With my art and with my philosophy.
So if people want to meet you, where can they meet you?
I don't have an open house anymore. And I visit my friend Paul, the master concierge at the Betsy Hotel. And where also you, my producer and director and interviewer of today, Damien, comes to start his Art Deco tours. And you meet wonderful people in there from everywhere in the world. I mean, sometimes I sit there and when your guests come, I start conversations with them, and I have a lot in common with other world travelers. And it's interesting, when you hear somebody else's impressions, what they had and how they interpret it. And then, of course, without doing Damien's work, I'm talking about South Beach, and I promote South Beach and tell them, did you bring enough money? And they say, why? Why do I need money? I said, well, for the down payment for a condo.
So they can meet you at the Betsy Rouse Hotel at 1440 Ocean Drive most mornings.
This is true. And when I'm not there, there's either a hurricane or I had a few drinks last night.
And you're sleeping.
And I'm still sleeping.
So it's a beautiful day. No clouds in the sky. Not too cold, not too hot.
Oh, it's fantastic.
What does the rest of your day look like?
Well, the rest of the day, I'm going home now and, like I say, make my spaghetti. And if you like spaghetti, you are invited to come over and we have some lunch.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, let's call it a lunch date and the show is over.
Okay. Okay.
Guys, see you.